Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is part 2 of Charcoal Man. We started this one in the last video, and we're going to continue it now. Taking a look at this man, it's a Renaissance portrait of a man that was done in charcoal. And what we're going to do is we're going to be drawing him in pencil since we're gone virtually again, and I don't have charcoal to get to everybody. So we're going to do this in pencil. And today, what we're going to do is continue on what we did yesterday. Yesterday, if you remember, we started out by drawing some lines across here to make sure that we had the right distances. We put in the big shape of the skull, right, that you can see in the red lines here. Then we took a look at the eye level line, A equals B. Then we took a look at the angle here in the portrait, that between the nose and the chin. And then we drew in this negative space in there. And you can see that this guy kind of has a bit of a frown. We measured back the eye and we put in where the eye goes. All right, so today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to put in the rest of the features, put in the ear, put in the hat, and start to work on some of the details here a little bit. And then with the next video, we'll put in all of the shading. We'll start some of the shading with this one. All right, so taking a look here, if you remember when we did this other profile, we looked at the back of the eye to the bottom of the chin equals the back of the eye to the back of the ear. Now this one works pretty well. His ear is just a little bit slightly ahead of that triangle. So what I would like to do here is I'll keep that triangle right there so that you can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the back of the eye. This eye does not go back very far from the front of the head. Okay, so it's about right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line from the back of the eye to the bottom of the chin. And it kind of depends on which chin. I'm going to use this chin line right here. This is some skin coming down from there. And then I'm going to measure it like this with my pencil. So you can see where my finger is at the bottom of the chin, and I'm at the back of the eye right there. So back of the eye to the bottom of the chin is going to equal the back of the eye to the back of the ear. Now, I'm going to put this mark there. So this gives me that triangle shape that I'm looking for. But when we measured it, we saw that the ear was just slightly smaller than that, just a little bit smaller than that. So I'm going to bring this ear in a little bit, which will give me a little bit more room between the ear and the back of the head, which will work pretty well there. If I have my eye a little bit too big, and I think I might have this eye slightly a little bit too big, I'm going to size this down a little bit right there, because it looks like my ear is going back just a little bit too far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to size this down. I'm going to bring this front line forwards just a little bit. That looks a little bit better. And then the back of the eye to the back of the ear equals the back of the eye to the bottom of the chin. So that brings this triangle in. So I'm going to bring this ear, I'm going to bring it in just a little bit. So I'm going to take the ear to about here. All right. I'm going to take the ear to about there. Let me measure that one more time. Back of the eye to the bottom of the chin, back of the eye to the back of the ear. I'm going to bring that ear in just a little bit. So I'm going to put it right to there. So there will be the back of the ear. That gives me a little bit of room to the back of the head also. So that works out pretty well. Now, there's another group of lines here that you can see. From the top of the brow to the bottom of the nose is where that ear goes. So if you're looking at here, right at the eyebrow, if you draw a line straight across here for the top of the eyebrow, is going to go to the top of the ear, right here. The bottom of the nose, if you continue that line across, is going to come down to the bottom of the ear. So the bottom of that ear is going to fit in just like that. And that gives me a little bit of room from behind here for some hair and for some different features. Okay. Now his jawline is going to need to come in just a little bit, although it looks like he has a couple different jaw lines there. He's got a bit of a jowl right here. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to put this, I'm going to change this a little bit. I'm going to put this in. He's got some kind of these wrinkles here. That works pretty good. And I should go from this one since we'll keep more standard. All right. So right there at where his chin comes down, his neck meets, this is going to come up a little bit higher. Okay, so I can see that this needs to come up a little bit, and then that's going to drop off right there. So that works good. A lot of times I'll draw lots of lines, and then I erase the ones that don't really work, and I'll keep the ones that do. So there we go. I'm going to take this corner, that little angle out there now too. All right, so with all of these different measurements, we're seeing how you can set this up. And I showed you a drawing earlier of Leonardo da Vinci. And when Leonardo was drawing, now let's see if I can find that again. It's right here. When Leonardo da Vinci was drawing, in his notebooks, he would draw lots and lots of lines on his portraits also. This one looks a little bit like the guy that we're doing right now. And he would do all these measurements, all the measurements and angles, like what we're doing. And you can see that Leonardo did that also. He studied portraits kind of like a science, because he was a scientist and an artist. All right, so I'm going to put, if you take a look right here, I can see where his hat is going to come across like this. It's just going to touch his ear. His hat's going to come, and it's going to be a little bit of a foreshortened circle right there. And you can see where his hat's going to come up and then off the page right there. And then in the back, his hat's going to cut in right here just a little bit. It's going to touch the paper, and it's going to go off over there. So that's where the back of his head's going to go. Here's where his hair comes down, and then the back of his neck. And see how it's all starting to fit together. When you do portraits like this, it's kind of like drawing a big jigsaw puzzle. And when you put all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together, and if you measure them all out, it should fit, which is really kind of fun. All right, so now you can see, here's the handout, here's the drawing. I have all of the major proportions in there, kind of how they're going to go. I'm going to put in this ear. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an eraser, and I'm going to erase out just lightly. I'm using a kneaded eraser here. You can use a pencil eraser. I also have a Factus eraser here. If you have a larger one, you can use this. I'm going to just lighten up some of these lines that I put in there, because unlike Leonardo, I'm not going to keep those all. I'm going to let those go. All right, so now we have all these major features in here. And I want to go back right now and start putting in the features of the nose and the mouth once you get those in. Now, if you look here at the nose, you can see that right here, his nostril is going to come up above. You see, from over here, his nostril is going to come up above. Let me make this a little bigger. There we go. And I will use one of these other handouts. I'll use a handout like this and put him nose to nose so you can kind of see what's happening. This looks a little grainier, but that's okay. Okay, so now when I do that, I can just see it a little bit easier, and you can see it a little bit easier too. So you can see that his nostril comes across here like a foreshortened circle. And I'm going to put a little shadow in there right now. I can see that the top of his nostril up here comes across like this. And there's going to be some shadow in here. So I'm going to start to put some shadow in there a little bit, and I'm going to rub it with my finger. Now, if you would happen to have a stump, or if you would happen to have a Kleenex, you can use that. But it also works really good as a Q-tip. If you use a Q-tip, you can shade with that. It works really, really well. So I'm going to take this on here. So I'm starting to put in some of these features. Right along the edge here from the nose, this comes down and it gets a little bit darker right there. His mouth, you don't really see much of an upper lip. I just see some shadow. I see a highlight right there. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shade this. I'm going to put a tone here. I'm going to start to shadow this a little bit. I'm even going to shadow this right here a little bit. I'm going to put some shadows in here. So use the side of my pencil, and I'm going to put some shadows here. Now I'm also going to put some darker shadows where they need to go, like under the lip. We've talked a lot about if the light is coming from this side, it's going to highlight that upper lip a little bit, so you can shadow this. I'm going to use the side of my pencil. If you have a darker pencil, like this is a Design Ebony pencil, this works pretty well too. This goes a little faster. So I'm going to start to put in some of these shadows that I see here in the chin. Remember, I did all the drawing first. I did all of the measurements first. And now I'm going to come in and put in some of these shadows. I'm going to put in some of these shadows here in the mouth. I know that there are some highlights in there. I'm going to erase them back out. Okay, I'm going to put in some of the shadows that I see, like with this mouth. As this mouth comes down, right here, I see that it kind of forms a little bit of an S curve right there. That's kind of fun. It's a little bit darker right there. And right in here, it's quite dark. I'm going to make that a little bit more clear for you to see there. Let's make this a little darker. I'm going to start to juice up these values a little bit more so that you can see them easier. Okay. Once you get your proportions in there how you want them, then you can start to put in your values a little bit darker. He has kind of a dark outline around his lip here. And again, remember his upper lip doesn't stick out as far as his lower lip. His lower lip actually sticks out a little bit further than his upper. So as we start to put in some of these details here, you can see that his chin is kind of a ball shape here. And then right in here, he has this wrinkle. He's got some really cool wrinkles. I like this guy's wrinkles. All right. They look great. Here, there's a little bit more of a darkness. Next to this wrinkle here, there's a little more of a darkness. And each of these wrinkles kind of works like a cloth, or if you think about it like a wave. In a cloth, it's going to pick up a highlight at the top, and it's going to get darker as it goes into the lower parts, or if it goes into the crest. If it's a wave, you have crests and troughs. So like right in here now, I'm working in this area, and this is quite dark. Actually, I'm going to move this over a little bit. This is quite dark under here. He's got a lot of shadow. Lots of shadow underneath here. Lots of shadow under here. You can take your finger and you can rub that a little bit. That works good. So as I'm starting to build up these values, and I'm starting to take a look at how the highlights are going to be going in here. It's got kind of a dark outline around his brow. His eye has kind of a dark outline around it. There's not a whole lot of detail in that eye. In front of that eye right here, you see quite a bit of dark. Just like that. I'm going to do some of this dark. So I'm kind of working in the front of his face here a little bit, trying to get some of these shadows in place. Trying to get this darker line right there in place. And around his nose here, you can see he's got a bigger shadow also. This is kind of shadowed underneath the nose. Right there. Now, if you get stuck on this video, and if I'm showing this during a YouTube, during a Zoom, and you want to go back and look at part of it, you can always go back and do that. I hope that this video, the sound works better. On the last one, the sound, I kind of had it turned up too high. It wasn't working so well. So there was a lot of feedback from it. Okay, so here you see some of this light and dark coming in there. If I look across here, I can see that coming along okay. Put in some of these shadows, because that's kind of fun. So what I'm going to do here in the background now is I'm going to take the side of my pencil and I'm going to just put in some of the shade back here. And you can see that the background here is not white. The background is a middle value of maybe a 4, 3 or 4. So you could take your pencil, you could take your finger and you can rub that on there. If you have a stump, you can rub that on there. I'm going to use this other pencil also. I'm going to use a combination of 2 pencils. If you have a Kleenex works really, really good for this too. I think I'm going to go grab one of those. If you'll excuse me just for a moment. I'll come over here and pick up a Kleenex. I have a box right here. There we go. You can rub this out with a Kleenex. That way your finger doesn't get quite so smudgy. Now, if we were doing this in charcoal, let me move this down just a little bit and back up. If we were doing this in charcoal, you would see, you could really, really see the smudge lines and stuff in there. That would be kind of cool. All right, so I'm going to bring this across, and you can see in his temple area, there's some shadows. I'm going to bring this across here with his jawline. There are some shadows. I'm going to rub this with my finger again. So I'm kind of working my way back into this a little bit. And yeah, I'm going to do one more thing right in here. Now, you might want to use at this point a cover sheet. If this part of the drawing over here is getting kind of dark, you don't want to smudge it too much with your hand. Let's move this down just a touch. There we go. I'm trying to get that glare off of it. There's just a little bit of a glare on this drawing. That's a little better. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I just want to go in here to the ear. This is the last part for today, and then we'll finish it up next time. If you look in the ear, you can see, we've talked about this before, you can see the helix, and you can see the tragus is that little flap of skin right there. Let me get this a little bit better for you. The helix and the tragus and the concha. The concha is that rounded part on the inside where there's a shadow, and then you see some other smaller features there too. So when I'm looking here and I want to draw this in, I'm going to use a cover sheet now. So I'm going to look at this ear. I'm going to try to get this shape in there a little bit better. And right around this outside edge here, I'm going to put in the helix. You can see that the helix comes around like this. He has a little different shape of an ear. Okay. I'm going to take another sheet just so that you can see easier what I'm drawing. I'm going to go like this, so then you can see as I put the two next to each other, you can see what I'm drawing. Okay, so this right here is, there we go. This is the helix right here. And then the tragus almost is right here. It looks like it's a little bit lighter going up and down like that. And then this concha shape, it also is a little different. He has a little different shape to his ear than we're used to drawing and we're used to seeing in some of these other portraits. So I'm going to bring this down and I'm going to look for this shadow shape in here. And this is going to get a little bit lighter as it comes around. So he has this kind of a curve that comes this way. I'm going to shade this. This out here has a shadow right in here. It's a very interesting ear. this man does. And then out here, this is a highlight. Never drawn this one in pencil before. I've always used charcoal. So it looks a lot different. I can do a lot more details differently than I did before. So I'm going to put in some of these shadows, and I'm going to use the side of my pencil, and right in here, this is going to get quite dark. And right above the ear here, it's going to get quite dark. Use the side of the pencil. And then in here, you can see there's a darkness. This is going to come through like that. And then here you can see this is the lobe of the ear. I'm going to go just a tiny bit more. I can come back and finish this next time. I have one more session that it's going to take to work on this portrait. Okay, so there's his ear. It's kind of coming into place. Let's back this out. So this is session 2, Charcoal Man lesson 2 or part 2. Let's go back a little bit further. So today, what we did is we took a look at him and then drew the parts of his face in the front here, put in some of these shadows. We measured back to the ear. And then next time we're going to put in the jawline, and then I'm going to show you how to do some of the highlights and shadows, which will be the last part of this for your lesson. So thanks for joining me for Charcoal Man Part 2, and then we have one more time to visit together to finish him up. Thank you so much. See you in the next video.